Okay, welcome to video 3 of class 9. Now we're going to look at how an argument by analogy works. In the previous video, we talked about what an argument by analogy was and how to distinguish it from other uses of analogy, such as analogies used to illustrate or literary analogies. Now we are going to look at the parts of an argument by analogy and introduce the argument scheme for argument by analogy. We will also go over some homework exercises. In the class after this one, we will be talking about evaluating arguments by analogy and introduce the critical questions for them. So just to review, an analogy is just a statement. It's a statement that two things are similar in some respects. The two things being compared are called the analogs. So we had this example here. A prime minister is like a president. The prime minister is the first analog. President is the second analog. And there's some implicit similarities. Both run the executive branch of government. Both are elected. An argument by analogy is an inductive argument that starts from the premise that some things are similar in some ways and infers the conclusion that they are similar in other ways. Okay, and so we introduced this example argument. Rats are biologically similar to humans in that both are mammals and have similar tumor-suppressing genes. Saccharin causes cancer in rats, therefore saccharin is likely to cause cancer in humans too. And the is likely there lets you know that this is an inductive argument. Okay, so we put that in standard form. It looks like this. Now I want to talk about some parts that are going on here. We said of this argument. We said that an argument by analogy always has an analogy has two analogs. Now we're going to identify different kinds of analogs. The reference analog is the side of the comparison that is already known. By contrast, the target analog is the side of the comparison that you are trying to make an inference about. So take a look at this argument. Rats are biologically similar to humans in that both are mammals, saccharin, etc. Saccharin causes cancer in rats, therefore saccharin causes cancer in humans. The two analogs are rats and humans. The rats are the reference analog. That's because we know something about them in the premises. The humans are the target analog, and that's because we infer something about them in the conclusion. So you can say that what we can do is start substituting in these terms, these broader terms for the parts of our argument, and then we'll build up the argumentation scheme for argument by analogy. So if we just replace rats with reference analog and humans with target analog. So we know reference analog are biologically similar to target analog. Something is true of the reference analog, therefore something is true of the target analog. We also want to talk about the similarities between the two analogs. The known similarities are things that you know that all of the analogs have in common, and the inferred similarities are things that we infer are likely to be true of the target analog. So that gives us our full representation scheme when we substitute in the kinds of similarities, the argumentation scheme when we substitute in the kinds of similarities. So reference analogs are similar to target analogs in that both have known similarity. Reference analog also has inferred similarity, therefore target analog has inferred similarity, right? So all we've done there is taken general names for the things that were in the previous argument. Rats, humans are biologically similar. Um, uh, saccharin causes cancer in them. All right, those are the two things. So the reference analog, just to summarize, is the side of the comparison that is better known. The target analog is the side of the comparison you are trying to make an inference about. This is just standard for animal experimentation. You experiment on animals because you can know them, and then you infer something about them in humans. The known similarity is the thing that you know the analogs have in common, and the inferred similarity are the things that we infer are likely to be true of the target analog. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple more examples. Lorain County Community College, Cuyahoga Community College, and Lakeland Community College are all two-year schools in Northeast Ohio. That's premise one. Premise two, Tri-C and Lakeland both offer critical thinking courses. Conclusion, LCCC offers a critical thinking course. So let's just push this down and we can start introducing the parts of the argument. The reference analogs are Tri-C and Lakeland. These are the two colleges that we know something about. The target analog is LCCC. The known similarity is the similarity in premise one, are two-year schools in Northeast Ohio. The inferred similarity is the similarity that's in the second premise and the conclusion, that they offer critical thinking courses. All right, let's try one more and then we'll go to the homework problem set. Oh, and that one slides down automatically. Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan were both born on planet Regulus 5 and both are gray space aliens. So it's another silly example. Bill Clinton eats babies, therefore Ronald Reagan eats babies. Ate babies. The reference analog is Bill Clinton. The target analog is Ronald Reagan. The known similarity, not really known, are that they are gray space aliens, and the inferred similarity, which isn't really true, is that they eat babies. Okay, so for this next set of problems, you were supposed to identify the reference analog, the target analog, the known similarities, and the inferred similarities. The first problem is actually the same one we went through in the PowerPoint in the first part of the video, so that's easy enough, right? The reference analog is rats. The target analog is humans. The known similarity is that they're biologically similar. Importantly, they both have the same tumor suppressing gene that if it mutates, then you get cancer. And then the inferred similarity can develop cancer from saccharin. Okay. Doug Gray is a successful businessman. He'll make a fine mayor. Okay, a couple things to note already with this. Being able to pick out which pair of things is the analogs is going to be important. And sometimes actually there are multiple correct answers depending upon how you decide to divide things up. The other thing is that very often parts of the analogy are left implicit. and we need to fill in those unstated details. That one is happening here. Okay, so we need a pair of things to be the analog, and so we only have one guy, so the pair of things has to be the two jobs, right? So the reference analog is going to be being a businessman. Just like the job of being a businessman. And the target analog is being a mayor. Now we know that the inferred similarity is going to be that Doug Gray is good at both of them, right? He's good at being a businessman in the premise 2, therefore he'll be good at being a mayor in the conclusion. But what is the known similarity? There actually isn't any listed. They don't say any in the argument. So we're going to have to say that this is implicit. And we can think of things like both are heads of large organizations. Both jobs involve running large organizations. Okay. Jeb Bush is popular in Georgia. He'd be just as popular in Alabama, since most states in both voters are Southern conservatives. So again, what you want to do is look for the opposing pair here. So that's going to be Georgia and Alabama. So the reference analog is Georgia. The target analog is Alabama. And again, the inferred similarity is that Jeb Bush is popular there. That's the one that appears in the conclusion. This is the conclusion right here. And in this case, the known similarities are spelled out. Both states, voters in both states are Southern conservatives. I didn't write this problem. I don't know if being Southern is actually crucial to voting patterns in the way that being conservative is. Okay, so that's the first three. I'm going to do one more, and you can check the rest on your answer sheet. Abortion means killing a live person. If abortion is wrong, then so is capital punishment. Actually, this is listed as a if-then statement, but it's really going to be two it's really two statements that you're making an inference about. So this is going to be your premise, and this is going to be your conclusion, right? So the pair that we are comparing is abortion and capital punishment. So the reference analog is abortion. The target analog is capital punishment. And so this is going to be your inferred similarity, that it's wrong. Is wrong. And the known similarity would be is killing a live person. Again, I didn't write this. I don't know what the word live is doing there. It's not like you can kill dead people. Okay, in the previous part of the video, we looked at the argumentation scheme for argument by analogy. And remember, the argumentation scheme is a style of argument has established virtues and drawbacks and a set of critical questions that we can ask and reply. So it's we take the standard form of an argument and then we make it more specific for a kind of style of argument. And then once we do that, there are established ways that the argument is good or bad. So the argumentation scheme for argument by analogy looked like this. You had two premises. The first asserted that the reference analog and the target analog share a known similarity or set of known similarities. The second premise says that the reference analog has the inferred similarity, and the conclusion says, therefore, the target analog has that inferred similarity.